Do you have a certain age range that you specialize in?
I mostly work with kids around the preschool and early school years, so 3 to about 10, but then some of my work kind of extends either before or after that, but I'd say mostly preschool and early school.
Jasmine, how did you and your colleagues get interested in this topic of nutrition?
I'm really interested in food. I think it's something that's really fun to think about and study, and definitely something that I hear a lot from parents is that their kids are picky eaters and they want to, have some tools to kind of help their kids along with eating healthier foods. And so one thing that I was really interested in is whether the experience that kids might have preparing foods themselves, if that would be related to the actual food choices that they make.
Tell me a little bit about how you and your colleagues went about studying this. How many kids, what age range, and did you actually go into the home? Did they come into a lab?
In this experiment, we had 64 kids between the ages of 5 and 7 years old, and we had them come into our lab space to actually prepare a food from ingredients that we had put together for them.
Can you describe what they did?
In the lab, we had some ingredients set up for them, and so half of the kids who came in made a salad, so they could start with some lettuce and add on some different toppings, and then the other half of the kids who came in made a dessert. So we also had some vanilla pudding set up, and then they could add on different toppings kind of in the amounts that they wanted to.
How often were they in the lab?
They just came in one time, and so the study itself was very short. It only took a few minutes, but we were really interested in whether just this really short experience would influence the foods that kids chose to eat.
What did you find?
What we found is that kids ate more of the food that they made themselves. So if kids made a dessert, they ate more of the dessert that they made themselves compared to another dessert. And if they made the salad, they ate more of the salad that they personally made as opposed to a different salad.
Any thoughts as to why that happens?
I think there's something kind of exciting about that experience. So kids seem to like the experience of preparing a food, and they also got to decide exactly how much of each ingredient that they put on. So I think possibly together those two things, kind of having that fun, different kind of experience, actually seeing the food come together, and then having that aspect of choice where they got to pick like just how much each ingredient went in.
Now, were parents working alongside with their children as they did this, or was this just the kids in the lab?
This was just the kids, so we tried to keep the tasks that kids did really simple, so just putting ingredients on top of each other. So this wasn't something that parents had to help out with, and actually we tried to have parents kind of be outside of the space so that they wouldn't be influencing the things that their kids ate, so it was just the kids on their own.
Were there any follow-ups to the study in the home to determine whether these kids were actually eating things that they might have helped with?
We haven't been able to follow up on that yet, but I think that would be a really interesting question if, having that experience isn't just impactful in the moment like we saw, but if it would have kind of these longer lasting outcomes. I think that would be really interesting.
What are the implications for this, Jasmine?
I think kind of the big takeaway is that this is something that parents can try if they're struggling to get their kids to eat healthy foods. So we use really simple skills here, just putting ingredients onto a salad and mixing it together. And so these are things that if parents are looking for something new to try, we have some really easy skills that kids can work on.
Why is this so important in this day and age?
I think that one thing that parents really struggle with is finding ways to get their kids to eat healthier foods. And these are things that parents have to battle with their kids about every day. And a lot of parents talk to me about their kids are picky eaters and they want some strategies to, kind of help out that daily kind of struggle that they have. And so I think, in addition to thinking about the healthy foods that kids are eating or not eating, kind of making those battles less intense or kind of easier to get through is something that I'm really interested in.
So do you have any tips for parents?
I think I would say to parents, start with something really easy. You don't have to, make something really complicated. Even just maybe letting kids drizzle on a salad dressing might be enough to get them to try something because they feel more invested in the process. I definitely don't want parents to be doing anything hard or stressful, but just even finding little ways to work kids into the process, I think maybe could be something that people could try.
Any tips on how to do this easily and simply? And just often enough where it catches on, where it works?
I think that kind of picking the moments where it's going to be the easiest for you as a parent to actually work with kids in this way, I think is a good way to think about it. So, don't try and do this on a weeknight where everybody's stressed and busy and you just want to get food on the table. Maybe pick a weekend or another time where you just have a little bit more time to let kids be more involved, might be a good place to start.
Are there any suggestions for parents on meals they could try or food items they could test out?
I think that anything that's on the healthier side that involves some kind of assembly, so something like, a tacos made out of healthy ingredients, kids can kind of pick put together the foods themselves and kind of pick out how much of each thing they want. And I would avoid things like desserts, which we also found that kids eat more of if they make it themselves. Now, of course, that's really fun to make desserts with your kids. Like, I wouldn't say, don't ever do that. But just to kind of be aware that this is something that maybe we want to use on the healthier foods that we might be trying to make that kids might be more resistant to eating.
Is there an age range where parents should think about starting this with their kids?
I think one question that we don't know that much about is how early this influences children's food choices. So we started with kids who are 5. It's possible that even earlier on this would have an impact on kids' food choices. And then as kids get older, they can do kind of more complicated tasks. But we also, I think, don't know quite as much about, in, say, the teen years, if this would be something that would be effective. So I think these are all things that we'd like to learn. I would certainly like to learn more about.
Can you tell me where you got your undergraduate, graduate, and advanced degrees?
I got my undergraduate degree at Harvard, and then I got my PhD at the University of Chicago. And after that, I was a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Michigan before I started my faculty position at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro.
Did you do this work while you were at the University of Michigan?
This is work that I did at the University of Michigan. So these are all families in the Ann Arbor area.
Socioeconomic, gender of the child, race, does any of that make a difference when it comes to food preparation?
In this study, we didn't see any effects of gender in particular on, whether kids were more likely to, eat the food that they made themselves. One thing I will say is that this sample of kids is a predominantly white sample. These are middle to upper middle class families, and so we don't know, how much this would extend to other communities. I have no reason to think that it wouldn't specifically, but that is kind of a limitation of this study that I think is worth following up on.